All right, all right, all right, all right. Look at that. I'm not even that late today. I'm like 3 minutes early even. And the reason is that I gotta eat a quick lunch. And I thought I would just start up and grab quick bites of my sandwich before we start to explore the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, or gardens in a way, together. So, I'm Chris Sandeman. I'm back again for another live stream. So if you're watching right now and it happens to be Friday, August 6th at 1:58 Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time as the case may be right now in New York City, then you're watching live. And if you are tuning in on a different day than this lovely Friday, August 6th, then you know that you're watching a pre-recorded video. But that doesn't mean it's not awesome. Take a moment right now and just go ahead and hit that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube, or give me a heart, give me a thumbs up, or as Bar has done just now on Facebook, say hello. Bar, hello. Manishma Bar. Beseda, everything okay? I hope everything's going well for you. Tage, the glasses are not new, and if I get really close to the camera, you can even see that they're kind of like scratched and they're not in great shapes, these glasses. In fact, I see a lot clearer without them right now. But from the distance, I would not be able to see so well. I've been wearing the glasses lately because I left my contacts over on the island of Manhattan. And because I'm on Long Island instead, in Brooklyn, I just haven't had a chance to go back and get my contacts yet. I'm going to get them today, so I'll be wearing them again tomorrow. Meanwhile, Michaela, willkommen. Good to see you. Thanks for being there. Eric, aloha, brother. I mean, gosh, the fauna that I'm seeing today does not compare necessarily to what you can see on Maui. But that being said, we are still going to challenge that. 12,000 different varieties of plants are in the space that we're around, although we won't be able to get to the whole thing today. Lorraine, good to see you. Thanks for saying hi from the Hudson Valley. You know, actually, Lorraine, it's good that you've checked in, because a lot of the earth that we're going to be standing over today comes from the deposit from a glacier that actually came from the upper Hudson Valley and, you know, the upper Hudson mountain range 10,000 years ago. We'll see some rocks from back in that day. It's a lot of the earth underneath us as well as helping feed all this land. Nikki, well, good evening. Tage, I guess I've never seen you with glasses before. Yeah, I usually am wearing contacts. Rebecca, I like little smiley face with the glasses, playing off of Tage. But to get back to Bar's question before, which Bar, sorry for skipping you there, what's the weather? You guys deserve a weather report, and I'm going to give it to you. I'm a little bit schwitzy myself right now because I've been bowling around in here to explore this space before we were going to go live, and it's hotter today than it was yesterday by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It is 86 degrees Fahrenheit, a balmy 30 degrees centigrade or Celsius, but with around 50% humidity, so feels a little bit warmer than that with the wetness. Jenny Jean, mwah, you know I love those purple hearts. So bear with me really quick as I just grab one fast bite of this sandwich. I promise not to munch for very long, but it also gives us a chance to gather and come together. Let people have a chance to come say hi. This sandwich is not excellent. And at $16 for a mozzarella and tomato sandwich, guys, $16 for this. Not incredible, but you know, it's fuel, so it'll give me the gas to go. Mozzarella, tomato. You say tomato, I say tomato, and bread, basil, 16. So usually, it used to be that this it feels like a museum, and I'll tell you why in a second. This botanic garden here in Brooklyn, during the winter months, so October through March is what they call it, it is during the weekdays, it's optional payment. And it used to be that on Fridays, every Friday, from 10 a.m. until noon, you could come into the Botanic Garden for free as well. Unfortunately, that is not the case today. So I've paid entrance. And my goal in many of these live streams is to show you guys free things, so that way, if you're traveling down the road in the future, you can make your bucks extend a little bit further. But if you unfortunately come to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, it is going to run you $18 until you get to October. And that's fair enough. And actually, I've come to understand why that is so important. And it's part of the story of these botanic gardens in New York. They eventually, by the 70s and the first half of the 80s, they desperately will need that entrance fee as New York City really struggles with a recession and is unable to continue to fund the botanic gardens. The two big and most important ones really being the New York Botanic Garden, which is actually in the Bronx, and then the Brooklyn Botanic Garden where we are right now. There's a third one, which is the Queens Botanical Garden. Actually, it's the New York Botanical Garden. It's the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and then it's the Queens Botanical Gardens. What's the difference? There is none. It's just however you chose to call it. Botanical, different places use different names. But actually, in the end of the day, it's all the same. So, but by the 70s and the 80s, it was really struggling, both with money coming in from the state and the city, and also just attendance was down. People weren't coming to these places so much, so they really struggled. How much did they struggle? Well, vandalism was a real issue. In the 70s, someone broke into this garden and stole a World's Fair mini choo-choo train from 1939, from the World's Fair from 1939. And they drove it out of the gardens. They just stole it and went on a joyride around the city of Brooklyn. And eventually it ran out of gas like miles away from here, so they recovered it. Wasn't any real damage to it. But the point was that they had to buy heavier locks and like increase security. It got so bad by the late 70s, early 80s, people were just coming to the Botanic Garden here and using it as a place to wash their cars because there was access to water and lots of empty space. So it wasn't even to visit the garden, it was just to wash the cars. And as you can imagine, things fell into a lot of disrepair. It's only through philanthropy and refunding by the city, and then ultimately the Botanic Garden using and employing a couple of tricks, specifically having specific events, having like exhibits, if you will. They start looking at the way that museums, which is why I said museum before, how museums do it. That the museums will, have a special exhibit to bring people in, to build membership. People say, oh, it's not just the same old, there's a different exhibit, it's changing. Like a restaurant that has a weekly special, okay, it's something different, it's a reason to go back again. And that really helps the gardens. And then ultimately they start to charge for membership. And fierce resistance from the local community. People don't like the idea of paying for membership, or paying for entrance to come into these gardens. But a happy compromise is kind of settled on in the end, with there being some free days, especially in the off season, and then different ways that, like, if you are a New York Library card holder, then you can get a special pass, limited, to be able to come and visit as well, and for no charge. And the rest of the time, people are paying to get in, so you kind of time it right, and you can still do it. But all right, well, look, I'm just gonna have one last little bite here. Hey, Mila. And thank you guys for Rebecca and Tage, Michelle, chat amongst yourselves for a second. Why don't we start exploring a little bit, and I can walk and talk and tell you guys more about the history of this amazing place, but really show you a lot of the extraordinary beauty of the Botanic Garden. Yeah, let me get my bag on. Just clipping up, change my mic down to the bag strap. Got my trusty phone for some additional notes, help me along the way. And let's go. Secretly, I'm really also, don't get me wrong, I love all you guys who are here with us right now, but there sort of hoping that at one point or another I might be able to get a Jim or an Alexa to show up. And why? Because that's right, folks. Tonight, I have not become more a historical here. So this means that I'm going to have trouble identifying trees that I don't know previously. I'm going to put my piece of paper. Oh well, put it someplace else. So, how much space are we looking at here? Well, we're with just around 50 acres worth of amount to see as we walk through. We're going to be circling back. What you have here are rows of cherry. A little bit of unstable connection earlier on. I still do have now, but if the connection is not great, then in the end, what I'm going to end up doing is circling back and posting this up for you guys later on. So, yeah, hopefully, thanks Tage for the heads up and the warning. I much appreciate it, brother. And hopefully we will stay stable. And like I said, if the shakiness and the the pausing is too stressful, then please don't feel like you're obliged to stay. You can go for now and watch this again as I upload it later on with a special message saying no lagged version into YouTube. So we've just entered into one of the earliest aspects of this park, and actually something that made it really unique and special and allowed it to city botanical garden Bronx. Remember when this not is original, it's in happening their own botanic gardens. This will open on the Botanic Gardens here, open actually May 13th, 1911. So over 100 years old. And as Tage writes, yes, love the Japanese pond. In fact, this is in Japan right now. Dai, Shohei, Maggie, and all of our friends and family over there. So, yes, this, although the the gardens here, the Botanic Garden opens first in 1911, this section of it, the Japanese pond and fauna, or flora, flora, relative to Japan, will open up. Let's go this way. Will open up first in 1915, designed by Takuyo Shioto. Brings this Japanese garden and shrine, Shinto shrine, which really sets this space apart. Like I said, not just actually from the New York Botanic Garden in the Bronx, but really from any other botanic garden anywhere in the United States. Kind of giving it its, oh, hello, are you a fish? I think you might be a little coy with me right now. So now the garden itself, the entire space of it, the initial first kind of exhibit, if you will, was the native Flora garden. And we're going to end over in that direction later on today because it is the oldest part of the Botanic Garden. It unfortunately has to close for about 20 years, 2 decades. It shuts down because, yeah, in the 70s and 80s, it just didn't have the money to be able to support all of that any longer. This is a great view over here. Kind of look out, we see that Torii Gate, orange Torii Gate that we're so familiar from our visits to Japan. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that I might have a picture that gives us a little bit of a sense of what that might have looked like back in the day. Let's see if I can line this up right for us. Probably can't. Well, you kind of get an idea here, guys. So that's the old days. Sometime after 1915. Olden photo. And that's us today. Torii Gate, it looks like I'm filming it slightly off angle from where I'd want to be to line that up exactly right. But it just goes to show there are black and white photos of this area from back in the day. So when it opens in 1911, it actually opens already to some acclaim because the people who create the space, who level it out, so to say, and lay the original park, are none other than Frederick Law Olmsted. Oh, nope, not Frederick Law Olmsted himself and not Calvert Vaux. Those are the guys that have been working on Prospect Park, right across the street, right across Flatbush Avenue. Right? And this is the area that didn't get taken into Prospect Park because you had Flatbush Avenue in the way. And Calvert Vaux had said, no, that's not where you... Michelle writes, your audio pauses sometimes, but not your visual. Weird. I don't know. We're going to do the best that we can, hopefully, anyway. Thank you, Michelle, for the heads up on that. We don't know how to correct that particular issue. But, well, like I was just saying, Calvert Vaux and Frederick Law Olmsted, they do Prospect Park across the street. Flatbush Avenue separates us from there. And Vaux had said to the original developers for Prospect Park, said, no, we're not going to try to build walkways across Flatbush Avenue. Let's just buy new land to the west and the southwest. And this section, which then gets kind of left over near Mount Prospect, the hilly area almost as high as Brooklyn Heights, directly to my northwest right now, this park is kind of left over. So, well, Frederick Law Olmsted, he ends up, I'm pretty sure he's dead by 1911. And who instead does this park here? It is his sons, John Charles and Frederick Law Olmsted Jr. So there's already some big names attached to the space. Look at this neat little viewing space here. Oh, it's very peaceful and calm here. So, whilst the park opens in 1911, just walking by security, didn't want to keep talking, pretend like I'm just doing a walk for myself. So like I was saying, when the park opens the garden opens in 1911, there's a constant move to try to, add to it and develop it as it goes. And so, like I said, in 1915, Takoyo Shiota has built this by garden, which we're going to go check out, which has plants that don't need a lot of soil to from glacial Hudson Valley there. We also had the conservatory open in 1917, where you could grow plants from other climates inside this big glass encased space built by none other than McKin, Mead and White, some very famous architects from New York, who also built the Brooklyn Museum just around the corner from where we are right now, as well as a lot of Columbia University's campus, and let's be honest, a lot of buildings throughout New York City. They were a very famous architectural firm. Hello, turtle. All right, well, goodbye Japanese garden. Let's go over here instead. I want to show you guys something which I think is really neat, and hopefully my audio will not pause, because if there's ever a time for the thespian in me to be able to come out and really enjoy speaking to you, sharing some thoughts with my community, it's here as we walk into the Shakespeare Garden. And the Shakespeare Garden specifically has plants named in Shakespeare plays, which is pretty neat. So here they speak to the plantain. The plantain, plantago. Romeo, your plantain leaf is excellent for that. Benvolio, for what I pray thee? Romeo answers, for your broken shin. Romeo and Juliet, Act 1, Scene 2. Over here, we've got Richard II's apricot. Go, bind thee up, young dangling apricots, which, like unruly children, make their sire stop with oppression of the prodigal weight. Give some supportance to the bending twigs. I think this is so much fun. I think it's such a cool idea to end up having quotes from Shakespeare that represent these different plants. The daisy, love labors lost, Act 5, Scene 2. When daisies do hide, do paint the meadows with delight. Never heard that one before. Christmas rose, snapdragon, Shakespeare Garden. Here we have holly. Holly. Ho ho, oh sorry, excuse me. Hey ho, sing hey ho, unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving mere folly. Then hey ho, the holly, this life is most jolly. As you like it. Act 2, Scene 7. Wormwood. Thy smoothing titles to ragged name, thy sugared tongue to a bitter wormwood taste. Fleur de luce, glivores, onion, the pansy. Oh, pansy. Hamlet, Act 4, Scene 5. And there's pansies. That's for thoughts. I think that must be Ophelia being quoted there. Here we've got time. A Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 2, Scene 1. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows, where oxlips and the nodding violet grows, quite over canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses, and with elegantine. Let me move us on through the Shakespeare Garden, and we'll head out and continue a little bit about the if that sounds good. Oh, goodness, Midsummer. Yeah, that was from Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, whoops. Now, this is a really interesting garden space that we're walking up to right now. And this space here was specifically designed and planned for those who are visually impaired. It was the first time ever that with this sort of idea in mind. But there used to be here and here in these little divots, there would have been affixated little plaques in Braille, so that well, if you were vision impaired, you could come along of the plant was, and then you were encouraged to get a feeling for it and to smell, the plants. It's a great space. You can actually, here we can still get a good feeling of course, this being Braille to welcome the vision impaired into the space. So, well, why don't we talk a little bit about the fragrance garden. Pardon me, that's what we've just left there, the fragrance garden, although, like I said, specifically really for vision impaired. Before we were talking about developments that really affected the early days of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, we talked about the conservatory, which is coming up towards our left. It's closed right now, a lot of the building space to general public. In fact, although that is, this is COVID related, this crown jewel in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden almost, despite being landmarked as a New York Historic Landmark in 1966, was feared that a lot of these structures would need to actually be demolished by the late 70s and 80s because just a deterioration in the in the condition of the spaces. So luckily, a woman by the name of Enid Annenberg Haupt from the Annenberg journalism dynasty stepped in and donates millions of dollars in order to help save these structures that are coming up on our left, and then the glass conservatories that we're walking towards right now. Ultimately, it's that kind of philanthropy which will allow the park, that combined with the strategy of exhibits and of eventually charging, of course, as well, entrance, which will allow us to have really what is absolutely stunning and spectacular botanic garden here to enjoy today. But the history of kind of gardens and having gardens dates back much further than 1911 and what we're doing here in New York City. Actually, the idea of royal gardens dates back as far as 2800 BC, where you would have had royal gardens, not for common people to be able to enter into, but for the enjoyment of, the royalty, especially in Asia is where we first see those royal gardens. That finds its way eventually to ancient Egypt, and then up into Greece, and into eventually the Roman Empire. Apparently Aristotle himself, the great mathematician and philosopher, likely cultivated what was the first garden devoted specifically to scientific research, and that would have been around 400 BC. Now, that's important because that speaks to the difference between a garden or a park and a botanic or botanical garden, because a botanic or botanical garden is specifically dedicated to the cultivation, the study, and the exhibition of special plants, right? Now, clearly, you could also use them as a leisurely place to walk around and quietly contemplate your lunch getting hot in the back of your bag as you do a live stream, but that's not their goal, right? Parks, juxtaposed to botanical garden, are really just dedicated to creating lovely, enjoyable spaces, and also maybe perhaps the preservation of natural spaces, but not a botanical garden. there's a scientific element here, and it needs to be able to include the cultivation, the study, and the exhibition, the exhibiting of those plants for it to count as a botanical garden. So, well, thank you, Aristotle, for your work. He would no doubt influence the Roman Empire, which would spread this idea of gardens through to Europe as it expands, right? And by medieval European times, what you have are the monks. And monks throughout Europe start to, create what are definitely botanical gardens, but really now with a focus on trying to understand what the properties of the plants are, and what those plants can do, what medicinal and scientific properties they might have, as well as cataloging them in no small part. The monks will end up passing on that kind of tradition, so to say, and by the Renaissance, it is picked up by universities. And universities, first in Italy, then up to Germany, and then finally into England and very much Scotland as well, will take up the scientific study of plants themselves. By the 1600s, Paris and London both have open gardens to the public, the Jardin des Plantes and the Chelsea Physics Garden. And by the 1750s, the Royal Gardens at Kew would exhibit new and exotic plants from the New World. Well, that brings us up to the 1750s. Let's take a pause on the history for a second, and let's go in and take a look inside the conservatory. Sorry guys that I wasn't looking so closely at some of the comments that were coming in. I now have a mask on as I need to when I'm inside. Bar, thank you. Yes, it is so beautiful. And Tage writes, there's a bonsai collection that'll be magnificent. We are going to go check out that bonsai collection as well. Now I'm going to do a relatively quick walk through the aquatic plant section. The glass roofed area above us, of course, is protecting these plants from all year kind of weather changes. And this is showing plants specifically that live in or near water. So we've got our ferns, we've got our hanging plants, we've got our aquatic aeroids. Now I'm looking at my time now. I'm 32 minutes in. But actually, I still have at least another 30 minutes with you guys, okay? Because I don't count the time before 2 o'clock. Now, I'm not going to go into the deeper conservatory, like down, 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 and around. We're just going to have to look at some of the other conditions and areas the plants are in a different time. Now that would be, you'd find those by going down these stairs here, right? If you went down the stairs and underneath here, we'd actually get over to these other boxes, which we're gonna see on our way out. So let's talk about those in a little bit. But as Tage asked, let's go check out these bonsais real quick. Now, the first bonsai collection was actually, the first curator of the bonsais was a guy by the name of Frank Okamura. And Frank Okamura, well, we can actually see him right here. This is Frank. And you can see Frank tending to an early bonsai himself as the first curator. Back in 1975 is when the Bonsai Collection, or at least, excuse me, that's when this picture was taken. I'm not exactly sure when the Bonsai Collection, I take that back, 1947 I'm talking about. 1947 is when Frank was here starting the first Bonsai Collection. Let's take a look at bonsais. Here is a willow-leaved fig. It's a fig tree, amazingly, but in miniature. Ficus benjamina on our right. Here's the Australian brush cherry. Here is the purple or strawberry guava tree. An ornamental fig. Citrus luminea. Another Australian brush cherry. A natal plum tree. I feel like I need to give you guys some proportion, so you can look at this tree and be like, whoa, wait, maybe Chris is just outside showing us a ficus tree. And it's like, no, look how big I am. I'm not Godzilla. This tree is small, And then you can really get a feeling for the fact that I'm not just taking you around a regular tree exhibit. These guys are little trees. How do you make bonsai trees? Well, very carefully, I believe. But I know that they need the same sort of conditions that the regular tree would need as far as light and water. It's all just proportional. Here we go. Now we saw a citrus luminea before, but here's one that's also fruiting. So I'll tell you what, these lemons look pretty big. They don't look as miniature as I would have thought. Okay. Great. Woo! If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna go back outside now because this is killing me. I get schwitzy in the sun and the heat, and then these things get wet, and I feel like I'm eating fur the whole time. So let's go outside. All right. I can breathe again. Nice.
What time you close?
So we've got these different conservatory spaces, and if we'd walked underground down that staircase I showed you before, it would have taken us through into these underground areas that show us, tropical conditions, show us, cooler conditions where plants are growing, and then also, of course, this is the desert climate space. So we've got cactuses in here. It's a much drier climate, of course, because these are all plants that have to survive on, I believe it's less than 10 centimeters of, or excuse me, 10 inches, 25 centimeters of annual rainfall. Less than 10 inches, less than 25 centimeters. Whereas the tropical collection over here are ones that would have had, clearly a lot more rainfall. So, but avoiding these glass conservatory spaces, which were saved by great philanthropy, let's continue because we've got some more stuff to see. And, time is not on our side. Not that we're in a rush or anything, but, there's a lot to see. One would argue that to really explore the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, you'd want to give yourself a long afternoon to stroll around and do it properly, or be a member. Join and have a membership, so that way you can come back again and again. Free entrance to members. I think membership's like $65 a year, so not too painful. Well, where were we? We were talking about this royal garden at Kew, in the 1750s, and this will really change everything. What London brings to, what England brings to bear, sets the new kind of standard. Over here on our left, we've got a composter, a metal can composter, and here is a homemade wooden 3-bin composting system, with a starter bin, the intermediate bin, and then finally the finishing bin, which is ready then for distribution in your garden. This whole garden isn't just set up to entertain and show, to exhibit the plants and species that are here, but there's also a strong leaning towards education, which we can see very much coming up on the left as we walk past the children's garden, actually closed to adults unless you remember. So I think that's good. Set a little safe space for kids here in the garden, teaching little green thumbs how to do it. So, right, Royal Gardens. So look, that's 1750s. Already in 1728, a guy by the name of John Bartram has created a private nursery with a whole range of North American species of plants in Philadelphia. And he's known for selling on samples of those plants, nationally and internationally as well. It's a great collection. But the first public botanical gardens in the U.S. won't come into existence until the 1790s. And that's when a gentleman by the name of David Hussick, or actually Professor David Hussick, will open up the Elgin Botanic Garden. There's this children's garden over here really quick. See what the kids have been growing. Professor David Hussick will open up the Elgin Botanic Garden. Now, he's got a really interesting story, actually, this guy, Professor David Hussick, because he had traveled to Europe to learn botany. And where did he go? He went to Edinburgh, that shining jewel of the North of Great Britain. And while he was there studying, learning botany, he also went on trips around continental Europe, as well as down to London, of course, and he could see what the great European cities were working towards in the way that they were creating gardens. And when he returns back to the United States, he is absolutely dedicated to the idea of making something similar for the U.S., but specifically also in mind medicinal research. He wants to understand botany in its application to advancing medical science. So why don't we, the Discovery Garden, where have I gone? No, I don't want to go through there. If I go through there, I'll be changing it up, I'll get a little bit lost. Nikki writes, wet and muggy Edinburgh today. No, Professor David Hussick would have loved it anyway. And Tage writes, I wonder if there'll be foreign tours also again. Yeah, of course. Tours are coming. Where have I gone? I've not been here yet, guys, so I've gotten lost. Let's see. Yeah, that's the wrong way. That's not where we wanted to go. We're going back this way. That's fine, though. Gives me a little bit more time to talk about our buddy David Hussick. So David Hussick buys this land up way north of what New York City was, heading into the turn of the century, Revolutionary War times. He buys land like, miles, a mile north of downtown, or where downtown New York is today. And that's where he pours in lots of money into developing his Elgin Botanic Garden. And he makes it a public space that people could publicly come and visit. Now, unfortunately, he's not able to sustain it, and it needs to eventually close. He sells it on to the city of New York. And the city of New York holds on to it for a while. Finally, in 1814, the city gives it over to newly changed from King's College, now a new university called Columbia University. And Columbia University uses the land for a little while and then decides, you know what, we're moving further uptown. We're going to go all the way to the Upper West Side. And they end up leasing the land on to another gentleman whose name might be recognized. His family originally had made its money in foodstuffs, supplying the US Army, but then had diversified into oil at the beginning of the 1900s or end of the 1800s. And his name was John D. Rockefeller. And it was that exact plot of land, it was that area that our friend John D. Rockefeller would use to build Rockefeller Center. So when you walk and visit around Rockefeller Center, you're actually walking over the old remains of what once was North America's first ever botanic garden, buried there below your feet, below all that Art Deco architecture. Hussick, really quick before we leave him behind and don't talk about him any longer, it's worth mentioning he wasn't just this like professor of botany, he was also a physician. And guess who he was the physician to? Alexander Hamilton. Yeah, not just Alexander Hamilton. He was the physician to Aaron Burr as well. Yeah, he was there during the duel. He attended to Hamilton after Burr shot him. Same guy that made the first botanic garden. You can't make this stuff up. History is just too weird. It's too fantastical and fabulous. So there you go. Professor David Hussick, student of botany in Edinburgh, creator of the first botanic garden in the New World, would go on to be Alexander Hamilton's physician at his deathbed. Crazy. All right. Well, what we're walking by here on our left is the herb garden, or herb garden if you're from this side, or if you're from the other side of the ocean. Colleen, sorry not to say ho right away. And Lorraine writes, sorry, any orchid collection in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden? Maybe. Colleen writes, love the BK Botanic Garden. Yes, me too. And Lorraine, I actually know where Colleen lives, and it's not that close to here. Diker Heights is kind of a little bit of a journey away from Prospect Park. Although, you know, with the subway, everything's possible. And in fact, in 1920, when the subway line is extended from Manhattan and they build a subway stop at the Brooklyn Museum, which is just around the corner, a McKinley Mead and White building, that's the same subway building era that would reach down to Coney Island, by the way, for those of you who joined the tour yesterday around Coney Island. Oh, if you happened to make the pop-up yesterday at Coney Island, later on, I was at the Brooklyn Coney Island Cyclones versus the Hudson Valley Renegades game. And here we go. Here's a picture from that. Very interesting game. Unfortunately, the Renegades, Yankees-affiliated team, defeated the Mets-affiliated Cyclones, but not without this guy here, Mr. First Amendment, having a lot to say about it. And I'll tell you what, this gentleman in front of me exercised his right very often. I would say nonstop. And everyone heard a piece of what he had to say by the end of the evening. So little flashback to last night for you guys right there. Yep, Renegades win 5-3, unfortunately. Jenny writes, the wet indoor area had orchids. Thank you, Jenny, for doing a little bit of research there. Really appreciate it. And Tage asked, do you enjoy Prospect Park? I've never been there. Best part of there? Well, if you go there on a Sunday, you can go to the Smorgasbord Food Circle. That's pretty cool and worth visiting. Now, Prospect Park is a huge space, guys. So there's a lot to see there. You know, it's got the Long Meadow. It's the largest urban park meadow anywhere in the U.S., I believe the world. I mean, it's 535 acres. It's just massive. So, Michelle, here's one of those boulders actually carried all the way down from the Hudson Highlands as you can see here. Transported by continental glacier during the Ice Age from Hudson Highlands. So all of these boulders that you see on the space here, they're all part of the glacial deposit. They didn't bring in any additional boulders. And really quick, it's worth just pointing out, ironically, a road. See this, guys? We're looking at? That's Flatbush Avenue. And across the street, you can actually, I can zoom in here. I think I should be able to show you. You can see the Prospect Park Zoo, right? We did a tour there. Colleen and Rachel and Waylon, we were all over there because that's Prospect Park, and the Prospect Park Zoo is part of Prospect Park, and the whole park is directly across the street. This Flatbush Avenue in front of me was the street that convinced Calvert Vaux to say, no, this side, the side that I'm on now, will not be part of Prospect Park. They'll do something else with it. And they did. They eventually built the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens here, as well as the Brooklyn Museum. So it got used in the end. All right. We're walking right now through the rock garden, like I was saying before. Here's a picture of the rock garden from back in the day when it was first coming into being in the early 1900s. And you can see all those folks dressed up in period dress, walking around the same area that I'm walking around right now. Again, rock garden, folks, because all the plants in this particular area of the rock garden require little amount of soil. They don't require deep roots in order to proliferate and thrive. So, all right, whoop. Let's continue. How am I doing? Oof, about 10 minutes to go or so. We might run a tage late, but I'll do my best to keep us coming along. Yeah, 1917 is when the rock garden opens up, although there was a fair amount of work done in the early 90s as well to bring it up to spoofiness. So, it's beautiful. Slightly warm, slightly humid, but beautiful, beautiful day. I saw one of these, all of these parks as you walk around, they all have little quotes on them. This one, in memory of loving mother, Mrs. Jean Lee Huang, always giving, always selfless, had a green thumb, loved flowers forever in my heart. Another one I saw earlier on was a bench dedicated in loving memory of my parents, because in their famous words, I'm past the age of dancing, meaning time to sit. I thought it was really neat. Interesting thing about the water down below us, actually, that water that we saw up at the Japanese pond before actually spills over into the brook that runs through the center of the entire gardens. And then there's an aquifer underground which cleans it and recycles it, and then it goes back into the Japanese pond. Over here, you've got mulch forming from the dead branches of trees that have fallen. They take them and they put them in here to compost and then keep the soil moist for the rest of the trees. And this is known as Oak Circle. Here we have a white oak. Although I feel like it's like an afterthought. It seems quite small compared to a lot of the other flora here. So here is the bluebell wood. And if we were here in May right now, what we'd actually see is 45,000 Spanish bluebells all in bloom. So May is a great time to come and see these bluebells underneath the elms and birch trees that are protecting them. All right. Well, what else do I know that makes sense for me to talk to you guys about right now? Gardens. in general in New York have had a rejuvenating effect on the neighborhoods that they're in if they are properly managed. And we see that here, we see that up in the area around the New York Botanic Garden in the Bronx. We're going to see that when we go out and visit on Sunday the Queens County, or the Queens Botanical Garden and the Queens County Colonial Farmstead. Here we've got a small fountain area. I believe this is called the Half Heart Fountain or pond. And this here is a collection of cherry trees. So not necessarily the exact right time of the year to come and see these in bloom, but a great place for us to come back in Sakura season once again and add this to part of our plans. We've got a line of Liberty Oaks here in front of us now. And really quick, we're just gonna dodge in here to the Cranford Rose Garden, donated by a philanthropist woman whose name definitely ended with Cranford, but I cannot remember her beginning of her name. We see a small statue to her in just one second. The blooming period for the roses here are really May and June, and then again in September and October we'll get a late bloom. But you can imagine, well, even if they're not flowering right now, we are surrounded by roses. And we'll cut across. Tage wrote, wonderful to head to Queens. We haven't live streamed there yet. Great idea. Oh, thanks. Appreciate the support, brother. Very much so. And now I can steal this woman's name again. Mrs. Walter. Oh, give me a break. Mrs. Walter Cranford. Such like a 1937 plaque. Well, hi, ma'am. What's your name? Oh, well, my name is actually my husband's name. It's just a Mrs. in front of my husband's name instead of a Mr. Okay, well, nice to meet you. Hopefully the gender revolution is going to catch up with those plaques as well. So, I'm going to figure out her real name because I know it wasn't Walter. The Cranford Rose Garden continues up through this space over here, but I actually want to walk you guys over for a second into. Can I enter this way? Yep, I'm gonna go up and around over here and take you into the oldest part of the park, the native Flora garden, in our last bit of time, because this is what was the original exhibit, so to say, and everything else that we've walked by today came after 1911. So, and just have to figure out. Oh, I shouldn't really cut over on this grass, I imagine, but it's a little bit hard to get into the native flora section, I find. Hopefully it won't be hard to get back out again. Ah, yes. Now I recognize where I was. I actually took the wrong turn there, because I would have walked along this path and showed you guys some lilies, or no, water lilies, I guess. Not lilies. I just spotted a turtle. And then, if you look on that mesh, there's another little baby turtle. Hello, little guy. Dragonflies dotting across the water. It's like butterflies landing, coming in for close little taste. Hello, honeybee. Where are you going? Oh, you don't want to? You a little camera shy? If you don't want to be chased. Some switchgrass on our left. Spotted bee balm on our right. A pitch pine. Some Virginia ryegrass. The Canada goldenrod. Tage, for you, buddy. Canada goldenrod. Yeah, I think that why that mesh there, Tage asks, on the dome on the pond, I imagine it was probably to keep animals from getting into that space down below. Maybe it was like a water feeding fountain, something like that. It's a cedar over here, and some seaside goldenrod on our right, some gray birch on our left, and now we can get a real feeling of this earliest part of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden and its real kind of rawness. Hey again, guys. And you can feel that this was the original section because of this kind of, yeah, just real, it's just not as, it's not as invested in. So it's sort of how it would have been laid out. A little white turtle head on the left, some forest sunflowers. How about that? And we now will exit back out again. The Virgin's Bower to the left. Hollow stemmed Joe Pye weed. Now I'm like a grandpa on the highway. Hoboken, exit 27. McDonald's, next exit. I don't mean to be that guy that's just reading things as I walk by, but with 12,000 different varieties of plants, there's no way I can talk about all of them. I mean, even if we wanted to learn more about, Wedgwood blue, how are we going to do that in the small amount of time that we have? And pretty cool, again, native Flora garden, the oldest part of the park. These old signs here. It says 1959, this gate was given in memory of Herman W. Stutzer. That's a good name, Stutzer. 1857 to 1933. Good old Herman. Yeah, member of the Botanic Garden Governing Committee. Alrighty. Over here, we have our Lilac Garden. I don't know if the colors are coming through for you guys as brightly as they are for me. The Lilac Collection here. We're looking at Palabin. Origin unknown, but it's before the 1920s, it says. Here is Nocturne. And here is the Maréchal Foch. It's very pretty, huh? All right, well, we're coming up to the last 5-10 minutes, I guess, of our tour today. We're on the far end now of the Cranford Rose Garden, which extends all the way down that way. A long city block below us. And I thought that we would go and take a look at something that I have not actually yet seen myself, which is this overlook that we can visit and gives us a great view over the Cherry Esplanade. Oh, just worth showing you guys. I mean, not that you wouldn't know it, but this is what this is gonna look like during Sakura time. So if you can imagine that in front of us right now there, but extended out all over here and all these trees down the Cherry Esplanade. Well, those first set of trees over there were Liberty Oaks, but these trees, Cherry Esplanade. So as we walk up this hill to get an overlook view, which I myself have not yet had, the Robert W. Wilson overlook, just a quick catch up on what's coming up in the next couple of days. So I owe you guys tomorrow the tour that I did not give earlier in the week, which is the Brooklyn Heights tour. So at 2 p.m., we're finally going to do that proper Brooklyn Heights tour. I'm really excited about it. And I'll tell you, the extra couple of days gave me time to also do, besides studying for the other tours we've been doing each day together, has given me time to prepare a little bit more for that. And wow, am I really looking forward to it. It's just such an incredible neighborhood with so much like iconic history and history that you can still see, not just because of the incredible preservationists who were involved. Go figure, there's Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses ended up buying a lot of property in Brooklyn Heights, and they did an incredible job of preserving the buildings that they were, you know, really just the stewards of, if you will, the caretakers of, until they were passing it on to the next generations. That's tomorrow. And then, like I said, Queens, we're going to head out to the Botanic Garden there, as well as the Queens County farmstead. And that's on Sunday. So 2 o'clock New York time on both Saturday and Sunday. That means 8 p.m. European time, 7 p.m. UK time, and 11 a.m. on the West Coast. Apologies to Australia, Japan, Singapore for the bad timing on it, but gives you a feeling of what's coming up in the near future. Tage wrote, In the Heights was a musical Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote. Yeah. That guy's a star. Any day now, Broadway's coming back. All right. And here's a nice place for us to be able to wrap up, huh? A nice view out over the Botanic Garden of Brooklyn. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. Whether you came along live right now and were helping inspire me in the comments, thank you for that. You guys know it means everything. And if you were watching this later on and you weren't here on Friday, August 6th, but instead you turned up on a different day, then thanks for joining as well. I appreciate it. Go ahead, leave a comment down below on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you're watching, or Twitch, and let me know where you were visiting from, because that's really fun and great for me to get to know. If you are watching on YouTube or you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on your bell notifications, as well as share it around. I mean, I'm sure that we all know someone that's not watching these with us right now. I don't think I'm embarrassing. I mean, I hope not. You know, I hope that you recommend me to someone to watch and come be part of our thing, that they're going to feel good about it too. I just have to make sure that the tours are regular, and I'm doing that. I'm committed. So, Bar, you're so very welcome. Mila, thank you so much for watching and your kind words. Tage, you know we got a connection, brother, so I really appreciate you. Michaela, danke, dass du immer da bist. And Michelle, thank you. Eric from before, the rain. Jenny, gotta love the hearts. Thank you so much, and thanks for the support on the orchids and letting us know that. Colleen, really appreciate your presence always. Nikki and Ross, you guys know I got nothing but love for you, and great to see Nikki chiming in. And if I miss anyone, Rebecca, thank you, of course. Couldn't do it without you, and that's for sure. And that's all of us right now, I think. I don't think I missed anyone. I keep touching my screen. Yes, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, perfect. All right, I got everyone. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna have pizza and poutine today, Tage, but thank you, my friend. I need to go to Manhattan, get my contacts, go for a run, and then eat something healthy today, for sure. Or go to a happy hour. No, healthy. That's the goal. And Lorraine wrote here as a pharaoh, we have cherry trees in Rosendale, New York. A gift from Martha Washington. Thank you for sheltering the soldiers before British burned Kingston, New York. Yeah, okay. Good to know. All right. Well then, folks, thanks again. Appreciate it. And there are many of you who have been literally tuning in every day this week. And man, I want to give you guys big hugs right now. Love you. Thank you. Frackin'. It's awesome. It's just nice to show up, and it's nice to all be in the same place at the same time doing this together. So I'm grateful to you. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you tomorrow or Sunday, then I'll see you next week. And I'll post the events when I get back home in just a short amount of time for Saturday and Sunday, so that way you know it's like official. Sorry that I've just been, it's been a big week, so kind of nuts. And the doggies, they never give up. So, all right, I'm gonna go get those contacts. See you guys. Take care. Ciao, ciao. Ciao for now. Goodbye from the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens here just outside of Prospect Park.